I will call this workshop meeting, the Ridgway Town Council for Thursday, November 16, 2023 to order, and for roll call, please.
Councilor Kroger here. Cranley
Here.
Lakin here. Schuyler
Here.
Thomas
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
He's on Zoom.
Can you hear us?
Oh, he's on mute.
Okay, he just gave us the thumbs up. And Mayor Clark.
Here. All right, thank you. Preston, you've got a outline for us. So you.
Thanks everyone for being here tonight, Thursday night. There's pizza and salad. And again, we're in a workshop type setting. So the agenda tonight, I'll give a brief overview of the budget adoption process and then turn it over to Pam to give an overview of the proposed 2024 fiscal year budget, just like she did last time, just like she did at the retreat. That'll include overview of the financials, follow up on any directions or requests for information from the last meetings. Oh, that's just sorry about that. Finalization of the capital project lists, special projects for fiscal year 2024, and then of course discussion and public comment on anything anybody sees fit. And then once that wraps up, we'll transition to review of the annual funding requests from nonprofit organizations. And then as time allows, we can get into a review and conversation about the draft 2024 strategic plan. So that sound good?
Yep, sounds great.
So the purpose of the budget document, same as it ever was, it's intended to meet legal requirements. Deficit spending is not allowed per state budget law, and we'll get into that a little bit more in a few slides. The document states projected revenues and expenditures, and it prioritizes objectives, and it establishes a work plan for the town staff over the course of the next fiscal year. I will not read this slide. You all should be very familiar with this slide. This lays out exactly what's in the charter for the town of Ridgway and the requirement for specific information when developing a budget each year. So this timeline is meant to depict how we've gotten to this point and what's ahead. So we started mid-August and went through mid-September, give or take, with meetings with town staff to discuss wants and needs and formulate a foundational budget to bring before you all on October 11th. That's when the draft budget was first introduced to you all to meet state requirement by, I think it's October 15th each year. We held a budget retreat in this room on Saturday, October 21st. At last week's regular council meeting, we held what I call a budget hearing, another opportunity to talk the finances and priorities and work plan items for the next year. We're here this evening on a Thursday night, November 16th, in a workshop setting, and then we have December 13th coming up. That's a regular council meeting where you all are slated to adopt the budget for 2024. That includes the capital projects plan, the strategic plan for 2024, and approve a resolution certifying the mill levy. So again, same as it ever was. In terms of approach, our staff's approach has been pretty consistent over the years, and I think we all share these four bullet points. We want to balance our core operation expenses with conservative revenue projections. We'll talk more about that here in a minute. We want to ensure long-term fiscal stability. We want to provide for the delivery of quality services and maintain an enhanced service delivery. And then number 4, establish reserves necessary to meet the known and the unknown future obligations. You never really know when there's going to be a really rainy day. So these slides, these next few slides, I'll go over, but these general fund, going forward a little bit, water fund and sewer fund financial overviews are meant to show those milestone balances, right? You have beginning fund balance, total revenues, total resources, total expenditures, and then a projected ending fund balance. I won't go over them in great detail. I do want to point out something though, and maybe some of y'all have latched onto this, using the pointer for anybody on Zoom. With total general fund revenues, just north of $3.3 million projected for 2024. You skip down to total general fund expenditures, just north of 4 million. And when you add the Tabor reserve requirement, we almost have $1 million in expenditures over total revenues coming in slated for 2024. So really want to point that out. We're already at a point where everything's really aggressive, not just the work plan, strategic plan, but the expenditures in general. So I think we want to keep that in mind this evening and as we go forward to the remainder of the budget process. You move the icon, sorry, but this slide is for y'all, it should look familiar. It's meant to show how healthy our budget in general, but the fund balance coupled with the Tabor emergency reserve at 3% is as a percentage of total general fund expenditures. Over the last few years, that percentage has hovered somewhere in the low 70s, mid 70s, and we're right there at 77%. Again, this is coupling the 3% Tabor emergency reserve required per state statute with additional fund balance. That's projected remaining amount at the end of 2024. And that's a good chunk of change when you look at it against total expenditures. So I already mentioned, you know, if there's a rainy day, we're well positioned to try to navigate that. Does that make sense? Yeah. And again, I won't go into detail. These are just financial overviews with milestone amounts for each of those funds. I think at this point, I'll turn it over to Pam to do her thing.
Okay. So, as President said, this is our fourth budget meeting. The draft budget before you is in format of almost everything within it is ready for me to say it's finalized. There's a few numbers I'm still waiting on, but everything in here that is highlighted, other than some things that are in 2023, then I'm waiting for election costs on that recent election, and I'm waiting to see where the capital projects comes in on the paving for North Linda Street. But everything else that's in here that's highlighted should be for 2024 and are all items that are included in the capital improvement projects. I have added a new line item into the water fund that is a debt service that will be a loan payment for the water line extension from the water plant to Moffett Street. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but I just wanted you to know that's added in there, and that's why it's highlighted in the water fund. I have also added, since the last time you saw the budget, capital project sheet for the water line extension project itself. It's the last page in your budget. So.
And I just want to clarify real quick, it's not an extension, it's replacement of that water line.
Oh, sorry, I'm gonna change that. Thanks for that. Yes, I have that written here correctly. So the general fund itself includes 3 full-time positions, a planner, admin assistant, and 5th deputy marshal that are not currently filled, but they are in the budget. Another thing I wanted to point out on the budget is that the state, we found out this today, that the state legislature may change legislation regarding property taxes, which may affect our mill levy and thus affects the property tax line item. and also the treasurer fees, but that's insignificant to this discussion. And as Preston said, we usually adopt the mill levy in December, but we may not be adopting the mill levy in December based on what happens with the legislation, and we won't really know for a few weeks what happens. What we've heard is that the governor's taken the legislation in and told them they can't leave until they figure it out a new process. And Preston might know better about that. I just heard about it a couple hours ago from the county assessor.
Yeah, Governor Polis is calling a special session and doesn't want anyone to leave until something related to property tax relief happens. So I don't know what the scope of that's going to be. So that's what Pam's talking about. So the nice thing is we're not alone, where everybody else has to try to figure out how to approach it at the 11th hour, really, in everyone's budget process. So you were talking about personnel, Pam. This slide shows exactly what Pam was talking about with the planner, administrative assistant, deputy positions, which are currently unfilled. We have funding in the 2024 budget for 3 full-time seasonal parks positions. We already have a commitment for NAMI to come back next summer. Hopefully that holds true, but hopefully we can get some more on top of that, maybe some high school students, something like that. And then as a percentage of personnel expenditures across all 3 funds, we're looking at 31%. I think last year around this time it was around 29 or 30, if I'm not mistaken. So pretty solid, and I was talking with Pam, relatively low when you look at some other organizations. But again, wanted to give you a percentage of personnel expenditures across all 3 funds. So hopefully that makes sense.
Another item in the budget that I wanted to point out is that your funding requests from organizations has increased. The number of organizations has increased, and the requested funding amounts have increased. So last year, we budgeted $92,894 in what we call council initiatives. This year, there's a request right now for $118,724. But I wanted to point out to you that in 2021, you expended $60,000. So as Preston had mentioned, right now our revenue amounts are at $3,343,183. When we take our expenditures of $4,107,834 and add that 3% of Tabor emergency reserves, we're at $4,306,069, which is almost $1 million difference, revenues to expenditures, which means we're expending more than we're receiving. And the budget, though the budget is balanced per state law, Preston and I had the conversation that it probably would not be prudent at this point for us to place more expenditures into the budget by increasing capital projects.
And I'll just add, we were at a similar point last year. We're above where we were at this time last year in terms of expenditures above revenues. Another thing to keep in mind is we project revenues very conservatively. And the hope is that revenues come in above what we project, right? So there is that, but you never really know what's going to come in. And so we really just want to hammer this home and call attention to the fact that expenditures are already at an amount, at an eye-opening amount compared to revenues. And can the budget accommodate it? I think so, but it's something to keep in mind as we go through the rest of this workshop.
So going back to that conservative budgeting, I've always been conservative in projecting revenues, just because we don't know what's going to happen. And we have always come out looking, not always, the last number of years, I've come out looking better than what we projected, but none of us know what's going to happen. So I'm staying with the same conservative numbers, especially in our larger items, which is sales tax. Property taxes, again, that's not, it's just mill levy that's set by what our Tabor limits are, but everything else within our revenues in the general fund is on a conservative side. I actually did put in some lease and severance funds this year. I didn't, do that last year. In 2022, those came in at $93,505, and I didn't budget anything for it because at that point, the state was saying, we don't even know if we'll get any. So that last year I put in 20 and we ended up getting 109,000. But this year I put it in at 50, which is higher than I would normally have done, but just based on where it's been trending. Other than that, our numbers are on the revenues in the general fund. The other higher number in there is the refuse collection fees, which is a pass-through account. It's not anything the town retains. It's just expended right out of the budget.
Going back to the sales tax amount, maybe one of the last times we talked, Pam had a estimated amount of 1.5 million projected for year end for sales tax. And it looks like it's going to come right at that amount, which is kudos to Pam on the projection. But we are recommending that we keep the sales tax revenue projection at 1.325 million, which would be even compared to what town decided to do last year. That'd be a 19.72% decrease from the actuals in 2022. So just calling that out. This slide was presented at the budget retreat. I will not read it. It's some excerpts from the economic and revenue forecast from the state of Colorado that the economist team puts out each year. Some handy information in there. And this graph in Broncos colors hasn't changed from the last time you all saw it. With 1.32, excuse me, I can use this, I'm sorry. 1.325 right here being projected at the beginning of 2023. We're looking at 1.5 projected to come in by end of year, give or take. And we're recommending to hold the projected for the start of 2024 at 1.325.
The budget before you also includes the new voter approval of increasing the lodging tax. That is shown on the revenue side. And what I did was I just doubled what we had adopted last year. We had adopted lodging tax at 100,000 and I doubled it to 200,000. Again, it's a guess, but
and then did that change get reflected into the affordable housing line item?
And so then it is offset in the revenues and both the and you're on page 2, tourism promotion, that's been increased. And underneath that line item is affordable housing, 5 items down, and that's been increased. The affordable housing was not increased per se because it was a new line item last year. And what we put in there was 75. I'm projecting that to be spent at 100 this year. And as we know, there's other variables in there, but I just put it back in at 100. So that's the whole 200 that we're seeing coming in at the lodging tax level.
It seems to make sense.
The only other thing that I wanted to mention that we talked about it at the last meeting was that Preston and I had talked about creating an item in the strategic plan to prepare a formal application process for those requests for funding from local nonprofits and having a submittal process. Everything would be done before the budget preparation itself and probably look at having some kind of cap on what could be asked for.
I like that. I think it's obviously time that we need to do something like that.
I agree.
I mean, the even 118 doesn't include the food pantry and unconverted volunteer legal aid, so.
Is 118 the totals, all the asks?
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct, that's what we've received to date. There's a few organizations that did not request funding this year. I didn't receive anything. Is there any questions on the budget?
I just had it in the, on the revenue side,
In the general fund?
yeah,
Okay,
I feel like when we just were getting started on this a couple of months ago, somewhere in the discussion was the idea of, that was brought up through myself and Carolyn Dressler about, creating a tobacco license, sales license for retailers that sell tobacco, and then maybe companion increase in the cigarette tax. I see the cigarette tax in here is just really minimal, $2,500
that's
bucks.
state,
That's the state tax.
that's a state tax.
It just seems like, you know, I just imagine all of you know Carolyn Dressler's background in pulmonary medicine and her lifelong commitment to trying to eliminate the serious problem that tobacco is. And that just jumped out at me when I was reviewing this as something that we might want to talk about adding as a direction that we've talked about going, and another revenue source. It's kind of 11th hour, but
Well, I think we probably have to put that into the strategic plan. Staff would have to do some,
okay.
some work on that next.
Like I said, I thought it was in there, and I just remembered it when I was going through this earlier, and thought I'd bring it up.
And I brought it up for conversation at the retreat.
Okay.
It never got any major discussion or traction at that point. That leads me to this next slide. Whole series of bullets of items that have been talked about over the last weeks and months that aren't currently accounted for in the budget or the strategic. And we can throw that, what you're talking about,
Add
on
that to
there.
that.
I will caution, to say it again, expenditures already at $1 million over revenues.
Yeah.
And a strategic plan that is already overflowing with items in 2024.
Yeah.
I just urge caution. And so this list I don't want anyone to feel like, well, I thought we all agreed that's supposed to be on there. Based on my notes and what I recall, I could be incorrect. Right? This is the whole point of this, is to make sure we're on the same page.
Yep.
So if anyone feels like it should already be in there based on the conversation and consensus, my apologies. And maybe it's not fully comprehensive, but I'm gonna go through this list. You just mentioned a good one, is tobacco licensing program in that respect, potential revenue source for an additional tax on cigarettes and other tobacco products. There's no funding set aside in the 2024 budget for any of the proposed improvements or proposed phases of the athletic park master plan. So keep that in mind. We're on the heels of that third public meeting, and it's gonna be adopted by the town council here soon. Funding is not in there, although it's identified in the strategic plan, and there's more slides to follow on the first phase of the Growing Water Smart Action Plan. Hire a consultant to update the street lighting plan. Hire an architect to develop ADU plans to make available to residents. Research and evaluate health insurance options for mayor and increases to stipend for mayor and council members. Again, these are items that are not accounted for currently. Research and evaluate rebate incentive options for new units going all electric beyond solar and EV ready. Exploration of vacating right-of-way at North Elizabeth and Charles for the purpose of constructing affordable housing units on that parcel that will be established. Explore establishment of an open container square or an entertainment district. And establish an education program regarding refuse and recycling. So again, I clearly read the whole slide. Sorry about that, but the whole point now is to just make sure we're all on the same page. We work in what you all collectively want to work in with everything that we mentioned. Bye.
Thanks, Kristen. That's good.
Do you want to jump into the CIP, or do you want to?
Does anybody else have any
Finish.
questions about the budget details? Also want to give the public an opportunity.
And did you notice, and also in the water and sewer funds, there was an increase in tap fees for the end of the year? It might have been at the last meeting. I can't remember if it was or not anymore, but that is based on a project that just got final platted, and thinking that it might come in this year, but if it doesn't, I'm going to move it into 2024. So those funds will be there, I just don't know what year they're gonna end up in.
I'd kind of like to, I mean, we don't usually have much of an audience for our budget hearings, budget workshops. And you guys, I imagine have questions, give you an opportunity to ask your questions if you like.
You know, several of us came this evening because our Solar Ranch 2A,
Come on up and speak.
well, I didn't really plan to be a speaker particularly. Deb, the president of our HOA is here, but we had an HOA board meeting last night for Solar Ranch 2, and we're concerned about a water issue regarding the north-south ditch on the west side of the soccer field. It's fetid, stagnant, doesn't flow, it's nasty. And there seems to be some controversy about whether it belongs to the HOA or the town. The HOA has always assumed that it belonged to the town, but the town, we get some messages that it's actually HOA property. So anyway, we'd kind of like to clarify that and even encourage the town to take it and clean it up.
Okay. Well, given that this is a budget workshop, I think the best we can do for you tonight on that issue is just make sure we direct staff to get with you and see what we can figure out, because it's not directly budget related. We don't take formal action at workshops, and there's really no formal action we can take on this now anyway. But I've been getting phone calls, as you know, about this issue. And yeah, I just think we'll direct Preston to get with Joanne and Public Works and a few of you guys and take a look at it and see what's going on.
And do you guys want to say? Would not the solution require some money?
Sure, come on up.
I'm just curious though, it's gonna require some money, and I don't wanna tie up your time either to fix it or whatever, so that's why I think we came with, you know, being a budget meeting, so I just was wondering, it's gonna probably require some money to fix it, so keep that in mind, but maybe that's not appropriate for tonight.
Well,
I think we need to have a foundational conversation to figure out who it belongs to. And from the town's perspective, town doesn't use that water. Don't know who uses it. Always been under the assumption that HOA uses it. So I think we just need to have a sit down to kind of navigate and figure out who should be responsible for what's on the plat and some of the other guiding documents. So sure, there are going to be some financial implications, but I think we need to figure out that first step.
Yes, for sure.
and I don't imagine it's a big enough financial implication, or however you want to put it, that we need to adjust the budget. This is
Okay.
basically public works kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If it is the town's responsibility, we get the backhoe and we figure out why that ditch isn't draining and we take care of it. But I think Preston's right. We need to
Yep.
first have a higher level discussion about history and get Joanne involved. And I know I've had at least one conversation with Joanne about the fact that there's so much more groundwater in people's basements this fall than there has been in years for some people ever. And maybe there's some of the drainage system that we created about a decade ago. There's a possibility that some of that further downstream might have gotten plugged. And so I don't know if she's looked into that or not. So all that to say, there's more to look into and talk about with you guys. And I think I'm confident we can figure it out.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
And just a page over, I'm Jeff Pryor, I'm the president of the HOA. If we can put a note on the development of the athletic fields that the drainage be at the first phase and not the fourth phase, it may decrease potential flooding of future improvements of the town park and the athletic fields. The other is that we talked to Peter Hackett, who is head of the ditch.
Downstairs company, yeah.
And the tailings could potentially be assigned to the town for potential irrigation resources for the park. So the idea that would be a benefit to look at creating drainage solution, both just to dispose of the water, to utilize that water in some creative fashion so that it could be an irrigation source for the athletic fields.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. From what I know about Colorado water law is what you call the tailings, the drain ditch. We don't have any rights to that, and it needs to eventually go back in the river.
Okay,
And my understanding is that that's not something we can grab.
I did confer with
But I could be
water attorney today on that, and Peter, he felt that the Dallas ditch manager, water ditch manager could see possibly the benefit of that, and that it's very consider that as
If it's a possibility, it's an interesting thing to explore for sure. So, thank you guys.
Thank you.
So yeah, I guess, jump into the,
Were there any questions on the budget?
yeah,
though?
any other questions
Anybody
on budget details themselves?
Seen anything in there that's?
Russ, you always have something to add.
I'm good for now.
Okay,
And I'm not sure if this is the right time, but going onto the water, not on the general fund, but on the water fund. I don't know where it stands, the discussion about the waivers. We've touched on it at different meetings
oh, the affordable housing waivers.
and figuring out how to handle those. And when we give them out, when we don't, and even I was gonna add into the discussion, and this might be for another time. That when we consider giving them out, we don't give them out in full, but actually consider maybe a percentage so that we can, that was $160,000 in revenue just on the Wetterhorn project. So thinking about, given the fact that we've got a tight budget, as articulated already, thinking about really strategically that money and the best use for it.
So if I can just jump it over,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. On the strategic plan, there's an item on there to develop, maybe you saw this already, a policy and some sort of program that will govern what you're talking about.
I didn't
right?
see that
So-
pop up on there.
No, that's okay, yeah, I mean, so, I'm surprised if anybody read the whole thing, to be honest with you, but, yeah, that's accounted for on there, and that's gonna be imperative going into 2024 as more, it's hard to foresee what might come in, but, is that what you're gonna say?
I was gonna say though, it's gonna vary wildly year to
Right.
year, like,
Right.
we don't know of anything on the horizon the same way we had this year.
Yeah,
But if you could have a program and criteria in place to guide, right?
yeah, I've just been thinking about some of the policies are all or nothing. And so to have a discussion that opens up percentages.
Right.
So, not something that we can hang our hat on budget wise coming in as revenue, but just as a mechanism to understand the value of it moving forward.
It was such a key way last year that we could maintain, well, if for any of the affordable developments that have gone in, we just know dealing with the cost of materials, developers had some limited ability to bring things down in other ways, and that was a way that we could help keep that starting number at an attainable level.
And I still agree that is a mechanism. I just want to think about the percentage of it, not as a whole.
And that ought to include a complete accounting of what we have coming in for the affordable housing allocation from the lodging tax and anything else the council puts towards that. So
I just didn't know the right time to enter into that. I forgetting it was on the strategic plan discussion.
yeah, good thought. That's on the work.
Anybody else have any specific items about the budget itself?
Maybe it's part of the wish list thing that, I don't know where it fits or even if it fits, but the idea is to potentially earmark the use of the utility franchise tax to fund sustainability initiatives broadly, which are the initiatives that will be brought to the council from the SAB and the Sustainability Advisory Board, even a potential source of funding for that Green Street Park, since it's kind of got a sustainability element to it. So I don't know if that affects anything. I mean, the budget is already in here, the revenues, we have expenses, but to connect the dots between them, I guess is what I'm talking about.
Is there a line item?
There is a line item for that. It's within the general fund revenues. And that's on page 1. And that is 410 GOO, excuse me, 409 GOO utility franchise tax. So that is part of the general fund.
I was gonna ask on the other end, is there a line item for, we keep talking about sustainability. I
But
don't know
there's
what
one
that-
specific to the Green Street Master Plan, but
well, there's,
in the Sustainability Advisory Board, they have.
I think Beth's asking if there's, if maybe we need
I
an
understand.
overarching one, right?
yeah, because we've got our Green Street Master Plan, and that's gonna be under the 519 GO contractual services, which is for the master plan, but I keep hearing sustainability needs money. I don't quite,
Well, there's no line item for it, so.
that,
Yeah.
that was in fact exactly what I was asking. Was there a line item?
There's a line item for professional development stuff, but we haven't heard exactly what you all would be wanting, what, when I say you all, I mean Sustainability Advisory Board would be wanting monies for. So-
Be one committee.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So the other thing is, you know,
Well,
very interesting.
But there's also not a line item for like the Parks Committee. Parks as a department has a line item, a budget, but the committee doesn't get a budget. That all
Just to be
goes
clear, where
through
it's coming
us.
from, in the Sustainability Board meetings, there was some discussion over whether or not they would request a budget committee itself for various line items like media, outreach, EV charging things, but a series of initiatives. And I think Preston informed us that the committee itself cannot have its own budget.
Right.
But we could have a line item earmarked or a line item called sustainability initiatives funded out of the utility franchise tax. And the model for that is in Town of Mountain Village and Town of Telluride. That's what they use their utility franchise fees for, or for sustainability initiatives. So that's where I came up with the idea. I don't know how to connect the dots.
So that would take an ordinance, or something to that effect. That'd be the mechanism to actually allocate those revenues to a specific purpose. But what I'll say is it all comes out in the wash.
Yeah.
So you, at the end of the day, the more efficient and effective way would just come up with an expenditure, provided that you all were prepared to say, like, have an amount that the SAB was interested in. But again, that's the purpose of doing those goal setting work sessions during the budget cycle and coming to consensus so that we can add those into the strategic plan and into the budget, right?
So
So
I guess more what I'm saying, separate from the mechanism of how those expenditures or the request for line items or expenditures goes, there's some merit to being able to say as a town that we use your utility franchise tax towards sustainability. It's kind of a moniker, a little bit of a, that's PR.
There's been a lot of discussion and there's been a lot of emails between Preston and I for understanding the equity between all of the different committees and the inability to designate at this point a specific line item for a budget for a committee per se. So I guess in the grand scheme of things, we need to think about all the different committees and their needs and desires
I would say that.
and have that discussion.
Well, that's for a committee.
But on the other token of this is if what we're saying we want to do as a council is think about sustainability in each and every decision we make. Almost every expenditure line item here is de facto sustainability. So
That was my next sentence.
do we actually need to designate our utility franchise fee where we're actually we're accounting for that little extra cost that everything's gonna have to be done in a sustainable manner?
There's been various conversations, in different vacuums, and my next sentence was specifically that. That's why I proposed our Sustainability Advisory Board, put the resolution forward to bake all of that stuff into everything we do. So it's all considered. And so we've zoomed back out to figure out how to elevate that into the strategic plan and the master plan so that that's just an implicit part of how we
I
think
get that,
about.
that's a cultural thing, but I'm talking more about specific expenses, like the Sustainability Advisory Board identified $5,000 for website development. That's not line item.
That's public outreach. Like whatever we have here for website or public outreach or communication, that's what that is. And now it doesn't mean that sustainability, I don't know exactly where that line item is, but like.
I think the appropriate route would be to the existing line items like for public outreach and some of those other ones, and provided there was consensus on what the expenditures needed to be, we would identify them and put them in the correct line items throughout this budget in the general fund and account for them that way.
Alongside all of the other budgeting that we do in terms of asks from the community as well. Because all the committees at different times, different years and different timelines. And Terry, I agree with you in principle, and I think that's great that Telluride and Mountain Village do that, and I would love to see that happen because I've zoomed out once I understood the structure of the committee and it doesn't have fiscal capacity. I understand that I have to go ask, whether it be a sustainability conference or consultants or something along those lines. And so that puts us on an equal playing field at this point. But would I love to see it identified? Yes.
Project list was research and value rebate incentives options for going all electrics. So something that was dedicated towards those kinds of measures is what I was getting at.
And so we may talk about that incentive options in 2024 and wind up budgeting for that in 2025. It might not be something that gets launched mid-year. The other difference with Telluride and Mountain Village and their sustainability pieces is they may be paying employees and running full departments on that. Where we understand on our side, we're looking at the embedded model versus paying specific people to be in charge of sustainability.
Yeah,
But I'm with you, Terry. Culturally, I hope we all think wisely, and I mean, it's hard to be green, so let's use the money.
yeah, I'm sure there's full consensus on council that we want to be doing everything we can towards sustainability. I think you could argue both sides of the point, whether we need to formally and publicly earmark the utility franchise fee for those expenditures when, as Beth's trying to say, they fit into all sorts of different places.
Well, it was on the back of our earmarking the lodging tax for two different uses. So there's a model or precedent for doing using tax revenue to earmark towards a cause.
But we're not talking about having a cause, we're talking about all of our causes having this cause embedded.
Okay, I get it.
I want to clarify that lodging tax, that was voter initiative.
Yeah, that's a different, that's a whole different.
Same with your food for home consumption tax was voter initiative. We have to, by law, because of that, follow that.
Pam, I actually do have a question, and maybe I should know this after sitting on council. How is economic development? So tourism promotion is essentially what we're passing through to the chamber.
Correct.
What are we spending the economic development line item on?
What did we spend for this year?
Yeah, so you've got it bumped from
We spent
$973
on it.
Yeah,
I'd have to look, I don't remember what was in that line.
Okay. My number.
533 GOO.
Yeah,
Okay, I
can't, good question, but I can't tell you off the top. of my
It just,
head.
we had, it looks like, we keep spending around 900 and budget 2,500, and I was just kind of curious what it was.
And honestly, it's probably some sort of a due or membership fee for something.
Okay.
Based on that amount, it seems like it's.
It could be on street dues or something like that.
Yeah. Is it
like
Region
Fuse
10.
dues?
Yeah.
10 which shows it somewhere else I saw.
Well, that's a good,
But
yeah.
it could be like a Region 10 or another economic development.
Okay,
organization.
cool. I was just curious.
Actually, it gets mailed to my PO box.
Sure, bank account.
It's weird.
Well,
Well,
this is a lot.
because just for that, like Region 10 shows up under council initiatives, and we're so deeply embedded in Region 10. I don't know that. And maybe we clean that up next year when
So
we think
what-
about
what-
that.
I can tell you the history,
Okay.
and it didn't used to be in there.
Okay,
And there was a council at one time where I don't think any of the members on this council decided they wanted it in there. Didn't make sense to me, but I did it. So it's
Okay.
not in there, and now you're the first council to notice that it's in there.
well, maybe
Okay,
we
right
just
there.
leave it alone, and next year when we look at the council initiatives process, then we can talk about it. I'm fine with it for now, but it doesn't fit the rest of things.
So I agree. I mean, I could move it out.
I would say for this year, Pam, that's like small potatoes.
It's
and if we're
up to
talking-
you, if
Yeah.
it makes sense. I mean, we need to do it at some point, it doesn't belong. in
It's the
there.
tiniest.
Let it sit there and accrue some interest.
Well, no, we're spending it.
The only other thing I have, if no one else has anything that jumped out at me, is that 25 grand for condenser mics and for converting our sound system in here, that seems high. Did
Yeah.
did that come from you?
At the retreat, I had an amount that was higher.
It was higher.
That's
It was
what you
in the-
guys told
and
me to put in.
And I walked it down to 25 from 40 something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a ridiculous price. And
Does 25 still seem high to you?
yeah,
Well,
yeah, especially with our.
I'll
booming
take that,
voices.
the ridiculous amount for the 40. I threw it in there. I didn't know what it was.
I think
that,
I think given our discussions about being conservative and what we're hoping for, I think throwing the $25,000 in here and knowing that we want to consult with a JT and a John before we actually write the check. But if that's a thing we feel like we need to upgrade microphones in here,
I mean,
then
microphones are not that expensive.
It ends up being more the system.
Yeah,
It's the
It's,
system.
it's the,
Okay.
think of it as the AV system, not
Cool.
just condensed.
Thanks, I was like, mics are not that.
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's.
well, and it's we're talking, this is all for us being recorded and all of that good stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a bunch of bookmarks after we had that last discussion, and my first looks on some of these packages were coming in at like, for high-end systems, like
$100K.
$1,400.
Oh, 1,400?
For like a wireless tabletop mic system that goes into a center thing, from Pure to program, all of like.
Did that include speakers and everything?
No, but I mean, even like that initial part was gonna add up
Yeah.
to be
I mean, even like.
$3,000.
Right.
Like a top of the line.
So
Both towers
just because,
like
sorry guys, just because
Yeah.
We don't need to get.
we don't need to get into the weeds.
Yeah.
Do we feel like we should drop this down more, or do we want to leave the $25,000 number?
I would say let's make it 15, just because every 10 grand we can save, given the discussion about how we're pretty tight this year.
I guess, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and how actively do we,
Need,
how high is that of a priority right now?
Bingo.
that was my next.
Yeah.
It's not really a priority, but we can keep knocking it down all week.
Well, you guys tell us.
It's,
How does
it's
this-
more of a priority for me, quite honestly, because I still hear people complain to me that they can't hear us,
Oh.
that these mics aren't efficient.
Okay.
So you know, I don't want to get into weeds again, but, you know, I think it is a priority to a certain extent.
Okay, so let's knock it down to 15
That's what I was suggesting.
and go ahead and at least take it, not necessarily the whole system, but get some good wireless mics and that'll feed into what we have. And whatever might be left over from that, then we earmark for the rest of the system for subsequent year.
We have an eye too, because we can't earmark.
But
But we plan for in the future.
call it gravy.
Yeah.
so we've kind of jumped into the CIP, which is great.
Okay,
But since we're in there and someone just mentioned about, I think it was you, John, about looking at amounts and finding amounts. My question that I had asked Preston is the Heritage Park construction documents of
I have comments on that.
Okay,
Our chamber is currently not sure they want a new
Visitor
visitor
center?
center.
Oh
my God.
Wait, what?
They're like, wait, you guys are going to get construction documents? And they seem very surprised. And they seem to want to investigate how they could like work with businesses and have it be in town. There are some conversations to be had with them. But yeah, they seemed pretty surprised that we were moving ahead with doing that.
And
And I thought they were gonna be excited and they were more like, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing that.
Well, I'm really glad that you're keeping them abreast. I think what happened, my sense is that there were some members of their board that really didn't like that we went for the ballot issue and changed their structure. There were resignations and there's a bunch of new blood on the board now. And I'm guessing that's where this is coming from. That there are new people that didn't know much about Heritage Park and are like, well, wait a minute, we really want to do? So that doesn't surprise me.
Was there a committee that we were?
There's a master plan.
Master
plan.
Yeah, and Tara spearheaded that, and it's a great process, but the chamber side of it is largely new people now. Not all new people.
Well, they will be here next month on their agreement, professional services agreement to spearhead tourism promotion, so that'd be a good, perfect opportunity to talk about that with them and see why you can get to the bottom of that, but yeah, we do have funding in here up from last year because we weren't successful in getting a contractor to bid through the technical assistance through Colorado Main Street. Because it's limited on the number of contractors, so we gotta do it ourselves, so we opt that account.
Did you have that conversation with them?
I have been going to their monthly meetings, and so this came up at the meeting at the beginning of November. A couple weeks ago. It wasn't like I can't remember how it came up, but they were talking about future plans for a visitor center, how they were going to handle the current visitor center and winterizing it and when they were gonna open, informing those new board members on their process. And then they mentioned kind of the whole Heritage Park development, and we had our budget retreat, so I threw it out there thinking they were gonna be psyched to hear we were going for construction docks, and they were not particularly excited to hear we were going for construction docks.
And one more piece, maybe you just alluded to it, but last year there was a water break and insurance got involved and it was a lot of work. And so I think that's probably another motivation to stick with what they got, saying there's a lot of work that just went into that building to bring it back up to what it was, maybe even a little better than what it was.
But they also acknowledge that because of its being right on the road, it's really hard to notice it as you're driving by. There's just a lot of, they recognize that. I think, I'm not quite sure why they don't want one. It sounded like it's the overall location of Heritage Park that they're not jazzed
The master
about.
plan, besides the rebuild of the actual facility, that had a lot of other amenities to it, it wasn't just about that one building.
Yeah, I think they're I think their general thing was, it's in Heritage Park, but we have to ask them for some details on that.
Terry, you're right about that, but the focal point and the major expenditure is the visitor center.
Yeah.
The whole idea is that
Right, but it had climate
make a
things,
visitor center.
all kinds of other things. There was a fair amount of money being allocated for.
But I think the other thing for us to remember is that this would be a visitor center that we own. The chamber is a contractor for us. And so if the vision of council is that Heritage Park needs to be developed to have a visitor center, if they want the town dollars to use and using the town visitor center, then that's the visitor center they get, unless they have a good reason to throw out the master plan that was collaboratively created by the community.
And I hate to be so opportunistic, but another reason why it would be great to have. When stuff like that comes on the radar, to be able to have that vantage. Just saying.
What stuff like what? The Heritage Park discussion?
Well, yeah, so like when different projects come up in different geographic locations, even with the master plan, that a planner can help think about how to cogently.
I mean, this was,
develop stuff.
I think we're talking specifically about the Heritage Park master plan that was a community.
And I just said opportunistically, I'm saying that this is one of those things.
Well,
that, like,
we've been trying to hire a planner. That's not the fault of anybody in this room that we don't have one.
I was surprised to hear that.
No, hold
on a second, let me finish my sentence. Ashley, I just had to sit down with Ashley and Catherine, and as Terry just mentioned, that there were all sorts of other amenities in there. I said, I made one suggestion at the last meeting, maybe even consider a dog park over there as another thing to bundle into that. They love that idea. We had a discussion about Heritage Park and we never mentioned any of that stuff. So interesting, it must be super fresh.
And it might be super fresh and it might have been an individual. I don't have my notes with me on that one, but it is something that is to discuss with them.
Okay, well,
Do we have to have that agreement all settled out on our end for that meeting next month?
We'll have an agreement before you all to consider, that will have been drafted by the town, reviewed by the chamber at that point. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, just.
Reviewed by the chamber at that point, and before you all on December 13th, that chamber resolution. Hopefully we'll be in here to talk to it.
Yeah.
Because that's a chunk of change to.
well, I'll just point out, I'll just point out that every year there's things on here that we are in budget and intend to expend that year, and they get shuffled off to the next year. So wouldn't surprise me, and it would be,
That's not always the intent.
No, it's not. Exactly. I'm not saying it's the intent, it's just the way these things work. So let's see, other.
So right
Go
from
ahead.
the CIP, I did find out recently that we need to change the microgrid line item from 45 to 70,000.
Is that right, Terry?
So let me go into some detail about that. So the budget for that microgrid is 70,000. I just finished today applying for a grant for 47,000 of that. if we got that, we'd be required to pay 1/3 the total, which is 23,000. Then we can apply for a federal 30% buy down, which would bring the total cost of the town to $2,300 for a $70,000 microgrid. But in order to do that, we have to purchase it, and then all these grants are submitted after you've installed the system. So we have to have the capital, knowing that the 70,000 we made budget will end up being 2,300 of.
If all goes well.
If all the stars align, yeah.
But 70,000 is the cost of the system.
Yeah, it's actually 63, and I included 7,000 for additional equipment to turn the room into a resilience hub, charging stations and other electrical equipment.
So would additional be eligible for the refunds, or is that?
Yes. No, I put it into the budget
Okay.
with justification.
Okay, so we need to make that item 70 instead of 45.
Knowing that I make it down to 2,000
So-
again, yeah.
Yeah, you
So
got it.
that's gonna affect the budget.
Yep.
Okay.
Since we're on CIP, I'm gonna jump in real quick.
And I'm sorry, I got lost in Heritage Park. We're leaving, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And last word on the microgrid, if you put 70,000 in there and we don't get the dollar grant, we have no commitment to go forward with it, so you don't have to spend the money. We can choose to or look for another grant, but you get 30% off the top. So out of the worst case is $50,000 would be the expense.
30% off the top from where?
From the 70,000, we would get 30% from the feds automatically. That's just because of the new bill. What I applied for was 47,000 more from the state, which would bring the total balance out of $2,300. So 70,000 will never really be spent.
So it really is,
It's more of a cash flow issue than an
Yeah.
actual expense.
because the federal one is guaranteed, the state one is the one that's not guaranteed.
So to that end, you might, if it's a cash flow issue, you could just budget for 50,000, which is the worst case. And then we may or may not choose to buy it, even if that.
So
I'm
it
confused.
is.
We're just leaving it.
All right.
We're bumping this 25 grand. We already dropped the microphones and stuff by 10, so.
Pam, since we're talking about, I'm looking at your list of expenditures for the space to create, why is there monthly management and cleaning?
Because we have to clean our space, and then the management contract requires that we pay part of the percentage of cleaning of their lobby. And
On the restroom, which we
Okay,
are.
Yeah.
I just saw cleaning twice.
right, yeah.
It's two different spaces. I think is what we're hearing.
Real quick, in the water fund CIP, 5-year, we talked about the water line replacement from the plant to Moffett. Joanne is on the call. She has drafted a state revolving fund application requesting $650,000 from the state. That project qualifies, I understand it, for a 30-year payback. Couple that with a energy mineral impact assistance grant funds that we would automatically be eligible for. Applying for these funds, requesting, I think we put 600,000 in there, but I think it's 650,000 that we'd be asking for, Joanne. That's what I saw in the application. Fingers crossed on that, but it's not reflected in the CIP. Pam and I were talking about this earlier today. It's reflected somewhere else, but our annual payment on that loan would be somewhere between 15 and maybe 20, low 20,000, something extrapolated over 30 years.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little bit more than that. That 15 was based on the fact that Joanne told me that we would only be paying half of the year this year, based on when we would receive it. So it's probably gonna be in our debt service for the water fund for 30 years at approximately 30,000 a year to repay that 650,000.
What's the percentage on that?
3%.
Oh, and we need, I brought that up because we need like a thumbs up from you all to apply for that energy mineral impact assistance funding, and we'll get it ratified later. So a bunch of thumbs up, cool, thank you. They ask for like, what meeting did this occur, stuff like that, so we have to be able to.
Here.
Yeah, just
Okay, what else?
So I'm sorry, I'm gonna put it in the minutes if they ask that question. Approved, the application. Is that what your application for the energy impact?
Submittal grant application.
Okay. Great. Thanks. I do have a question that I don't want to forget. At the last meeting, the Home Trust came to the council.
That's
I
for
believe
30 grand.
they asked for 40,000. 30, okay. So if council chooses to do that, I would spend that out of the affordable housing line item. And I just need to know if you want me to put that in there. If I do, I'm gonna put it into this expenditure sheet for the next year.
I think we're all in agreement on that, aren't we?
It's not a council initiatives line item.
No, it would come out of the affordable housing.
You can make an argument that it is, but I think staff feels better that it comes up.
Oh, you can, yeah, if you want me to make a new line item, I'll make it.
No, I was just asking if it was in there. I didn't see it.
It would be, where I'm looking, taking out is 535G00 on page 2. And so if you do
Here's the bottom.
allocate it, all I'm saying is then I'm gonna put it into the sheet so that, it's noted in here that it's part of the budget.
Go ahead, Russ.
No, I had nothing. I was just. What is the rest of that affordable housing money going to? That 100,000 that we've got budgeted in there right now?
This year,
More requests for
are you referring to this year, but Russ, or next?
24.
For next year.
Oh,
Who knows?
That's our new voter approved monies.
yeah, it's the monies that you may receive through the lodging tax. If lodging tax stays at the rate it is right now.
Okay, that's our proposed income from that lodging
Yeah.
tax. Okay,
And this year, you're gonna probably expend close to that on, all the waived fees that we've given to developments for the town attorney, the town engineer, development review. We put culverts in, and those kinds of things all came out of that line item this year.
okay.
Are we gonna end up potentially with any requests from Home Trust for pass-through assistance, like on any of the grants, or can they, at this point, now that they're formed, they can apply for any and all grants that are out there, or do they need us?
If they
Depends.
need a government entity, they.
Depends if they're like, most DOLA money has to go through us. Things like that, but a lot of the grants they're applying for, they can go direct.
It also depends on where they're working. I mean, they could ask the county, they could ask the city, it could be us. It really depends on what.
What they're calling the Sherman Street rental project, across the alley from the Silver San Juan building. That's, design next year, build 25, I think is their current schedule. So they'll be asking for tap and permit fee waivers for that eventually. But probably not until 25.
But through Prop 123, there's a number of programs that they're eligible to apply for now, since it's our jurisdiction. But prior to Prop 123, would be set up where, like Ridgway Homes had to ask us to secure that grant on their behalf to apply towards the project. So it just varies.
Wait, so Prop 123 now lets those entities within a jurisdiction apply?
Yeah, as long as within the jurisdiction is opted in. It depends on the program. There's gonna be so many, but yeah, I mean, we're talking nonprofit developers, for-profit developers. It just depends on how it's structured, these programs, but yeah, they'll be eligible to apply for this funding simply because the jurisdiction is opted in.
Gotcha. And you guys, I apologize, obviously I wasn't here for council last week, and I know that they came to council for the ask. And going to 40,000, it's a strong chunk of cash.
Well,
But
30,
it's 30.
I couldn't remember that.
That's probably the biggest ask we have, isn't it?
In terms of community initiatives and stuff, yeah.
So just with the thought that they're probably gonna come to us with other asks on top of the annual allocation. So just something that I just was trying to get a sense of like, what's the spectrum, potential number of asks they might have for us.
They're also doing, I mean, with some of the work they've done in Uray and purchasing, you know, some housing and maintaining it. They also got, I believe the county said yes to 40K and the city, so I mean, this is true, like, they're being funded throughout all 3 jurisdictions in the county, so.
And I'll also add, I spend my, it's not the whole day, but half my day on Sunday at a board retreat for the Home Trust. And we had this exact conversation about, okay, it was 10 and it was 20, now it's 30. We need some, and Josh Smith representing the city of Uray, and Jake Neese representing the county, had a very thoughtful conversation about in future years, you all need to have some data and some specific information to substantiate the requests.
Yeah.
You know, 10, 20, 30, nice round numbers certainly can.
It's linear anyway.
It's linear, but we're gonna need more than that. And that's gonna take some, you know, probably a joint work session or something. I'm just giving you a heads up at some point in 2024 to get everyone in a room and kind of figure out what would work for the Home Trust, given the needs.
Okay, good.
So,
That's kind of the tree I was barking up on that, and trying to get a perspective on that, not just for the incremental climb and what the Home Trust, they've got great ambitions, doing good work. But also when we have the conversation about the other asks that we're gonna get every year, if we want to, Pam mentioned a cap or a number of years in a row that somebody can ask, or a cap on a percentage more from the previous year, something like that.
all stuff to consider.
And if we start out with a baseline of 30,000 and they're allowed to go to a 5% more ask the next time, that's still at 30,000, that becomes a chunk.
So I think the thing with that work session and JT, just to kind of touch on what Andrea said, is she did allude to their growing grant influence now that they have had some money to start to get established from the jurisdictions in the county. So that would be part of that work session is how do you see public funding from the county, the city and the town long-term versus, I mean, I wouldn't want to say don't come back to us every year if we've got an organization that's doing really good work and they are regularly doing things versus a one-off, because a one-off person that we don't work with regularly could feel like a way bigger risk than an organization like the Home Trust that we build a long-term working relationship with. So I wouldn't want to say, no, you can only come back every 2 years. That actually seems
But also their
counterproductive to
ability
me.
to attract additional grant funding is often based on their ability to match. And so
Right.
the more they can raise
Anyway.
matching funds, the more they can raise in grants.
So I think for my purpose, I don't know if you guys agree, I would say for now, we would plan on giving them the 30,000. I love that the idea of a giant work session in 2024.
And out of affordable housing line item, or would you like me to create a line item specific for them under council initiatives?
I think,
That's interesting. I mean, what would we have to do if it was a housing authority versus a Home Trust? Wouldn't,
we get to
Wouldn't-
decide which line item we're
Yeah,
gonna
we
spend.
just assume-
I don't think it makes a difference.
it doesn't.
I think
mean,
the
with
difference is,
I was wondering with the housing authority, then isn't there usually an obligation between the different entities within a county, what percentage they pay?
that's part of that work session, and we're fortunate right now knowing that everybody's in at 30K.
Mhm.
So we kind of have it for next year.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't trying to turn the screws on it. I was
But
just
it's-
trying to understand it with that full 30K, that it does just shining a light on the fact that it sets the baseline where we're starting from with them, given the fact that it's larger than a lot of other organizations. Do I love what they do? Do I promote what they do? Am I a champion of it? Absolutely. Am I inclined to vote for the 30? Yes. But just trying to, knowing that we do have a potential work session coming up this next year, just wanted to put that stuff on the table. And I'm sorry I wasn't there last week.
Yeah, that's fine.
So
I will think
Pam,
of it in
if
December.
if we didn't take it out of the $100,000 affordable home budget and it became a council initiative, does that essentially add 30,000 more to the budget?
Or maybe it's not council initiative, maybe it's under community and economic development and you call it home. trust or whatever you just call the home.
I'm inclined to, for this year, put it in the affordable housing line item. It is a big, it takes about a third out of what we're planning to spend, but I think. What, 100, well, 30 is
30, I'm sorry.
30.
That's amazing.
I'm like, I'm bad at arithmetic, but I'm not that bad at it.
No, it's because I said the wrong number.
So I think for this year, that would make sense. And then kind of making a game plan. I think the key with our sustainable housing dollars is to be really transparent to our community on what we're spending them on, and $30,000 towards the home trust feels like a defensible way to spend
Absolutely.
that. So,
Without question.
And it doesn't guarantee that we'll give a full 30 again next year.
no, it
That's
doesn't.
budget dependent.
Okay, what next?
Again, just jump in again, sorry.
Yeah, do it.
These slides are the exact same ones we presented last week about the integrated water and planning workshops that we attended. It was awesome. We're all smiling in the photo. It was great event. John presented, some of these milestones, and setting team intentions all the way down to setting an action plan being the culmination. John talked about the Ridgway story. Here's Ridgway's story. Again, not gonna read this again, but I did want to go over these slides, which lay out the action plan. A lot of it's abbreviated, but the yellow highlighted areas identifies stuff for 2024. And so some of this doesn't require, hard dollars to achieve. We're talking about, exploring capacity, applying for technical assistance, finding partners to bring some of these goals to fruition. I'll just kind of breeze through these. The one action plan goal and outcome that would take dollars in 2024 would be to come up with some sort of media marketing campaign to develop assets related to, again, that media plan to support Water Smart Ridgway, to inform the community. And to expand outreach, and all of that's slated for that first year. So again, going back to that slide that had the bulleted list of stuff that's not in the strategic plan or accommodated for in the budget, the Water Smart Action Plan is identified in the strategic plan, but there's no dollars to accommodate the stuff specifically on this slide in yellow. I'm even confused, I'm sorry. So I guess what I'm saying is, the picture is not on here. Should we create another line item? Is that what you said?
What were you getting at?
The picture of the entire group is not on here, but the town of Ridgway made a commitment to that whole crew and to ourselves that we would move this action plan forward. It was very worthwhile. John, please jump in. I didn't want to
No, it's okay. You're doing a great job.
but I think it would be, staff would recommend and advise it would be worthwhile to add this on the work plan and start carrying forward the first year of the action plan.
Can you go back to the last slide?
And what's the ask on that?
To move, to start moving forward in 2024 with everything that's in yellow on these slides, Russ. And then what I was trying to say is the only monetary or financial implication would be to hire a, what's the word? Some
Graphic artist.
graphic artist to help us come up with that media plan.
Yeah.
That feels reasonable.
Okay, and that's at what level, what cost do we know? Or
We don't,
is that
but-
to be determined?
It is to be determined. I don't foresee it being a huge amount, especially when I think there probably are resources either through the Snow Institute or
Yeah.
some of their partners that would help us with that. I mean, this isn't reinventing the wheel.
So it'd be
But for a number
looking
of
to
us,
put budget to it or not?
I can't imagine anything over $4,000 or $5,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say $5,000 tops and probably less.
Well,
Okay, and then there's also an ask for a fair amount of town staff time, yeah?
Correct.
Which is identified in here.
Yeah, there's.
At least to start identifying how we might accomplish some of the other goals.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that.
Didn't we already have the sewer rates on our work plan for next year?
Yep.
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. I completely agree that we should, keep doing the growing water smart and really get into it because it's going to become and is already an issue and it's going to become a greater issue as.
Next spring's gonna be, it's gonna be a big talking point.
Yeah.
Really?
Preston, I would say to that point, I was gonna offer up like lean on sustainability advisory board, but also like parks and open space. As you're calibrating the amount of work that staff needs to do, I talk to committees too.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, some of that stuff is already inherently part of the stuff we've outlined.
Oh, yeah. Some of those will become the SABs.
That goes with some of the waste.
Confucius to say action without budget is just an idea.
So I'm just gonna make a
was-
note in the expenditure on
Yeah.
line item 914. WOO of the graphic artist. I'm just gonna increase the line item slightly.
Okay.
Great.
And Terry, did you delay it?
And under the find partner, I think a university would be an awesome thing to get involved with. I see that you have CSU or SMPA. Let's go with the university.
Yeah.
Well, Western
thinking
has-
Western,
John,
Mesa, let's get some
That'd be cool.
university
there's
stuff.
a whole Western Water initiative that's
Yeah.
already happening. John, his crazy last name, I can't remember, but I've worked with him through High Country News and.
So he used to work here. John, it's like a.
Yep,
Yeah,
him.
yeah, I know
I
him.
love that, Polly. That's a great idea. Yeah, let's.
Yeah.
University instead of a company.
I mean, Eco, just so you know, just like the state was a university project. Eco Action leans on grad students to work on specific projects. So good thing to keep in mind for all of us in different committees. It's otherwise known as free labor.
It's also known as helping them build their portfolio and all sorts of good things.
We love a resume builder.
Some of these are for thesis.
Yeah.
What else, y'all?
Pam, do you have anything else you need from us?
We covered everything that I.
So do we need to dive into request the council initiative?
If you all are ready for that part.
I mean,
What else?
I
did
have
you
thoughts.
List of things that hadn't been included yet, Preston. You had the water smart. What else was on that list?
Hang on, let me bring it up. I'm sorry.
All right. Trying to figure out if we need to hammer through any more of those, so.
Yeah, good thought.
Yeah.
Good thought. Yeah, you mentioned the growing water smart, we just talked about. And then several other bullets on there.
I think we talked about the ADU piece. I think that's something we need to maybe think, I mean, I don't know, what do you guys think? Is that this?
Wait, I didn't.
I'm talking about the hire an architect to develop the ADU plans. That's helpful. I don't know, is the actual design of an ADU the actual barrier to most people for building the ADU?
Are there grants available to individual builders? Or people doing that for ADUs for community housing that maybe people could go to rather than. I love the idea of having plans for our community in terms of promoting people constructing ADUs. But what's that look like? Is that 70 grand?
I don't
My
know.
my idea was always having a, outreach to regional architects and have a bit of a competition so that they can actually get some PR. I don't think it necessarily needs to be something we spend a lot of money on.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then, I think when we were talking about this at the initial budget meeting, I can't remember, I think it was Vale or Avon maybe that actually had several ADU plans already available. Now, I don't know if their requirements are consistent with ours, but I like the idea. I'm not sure we actually need to hire an architect to do that.
I agree.
And along with Kevin's line there, the idea of, for people building ADUs, the thing would be to find some grant money that's available. I know it's out there, but provide some assistance in that, I think would be more beneficial than actually providing plans.
I think the biggest stumbling block for a lot of people is I can afford my own mortgage payment, but how do I afford it if I don't have a renter in my ADU? And I say that as somebody who would love to build an ADU.
Well,
That's my stumbling block.
it's so interesting because we created our ADU program long before it was such a hot ticket item. And it was with the idea that it would help people cover their mortgage.
But I have to build a garage with an apartment, so now that adds to my mortgage.
True. Citizen State Bank created a loan program for me, you, and an ADU project. And it was a reduced interest rate, I think. I don't know what it's evolved to at this point, because at the time, the interest rates were so low to begin with. We should revisit that with them. I mean, I still think ADUs are a huge potential way to gain workforce housing.
I guess what I'm saying is that to me is something maybe we need to think about more. It's not a huge budgeting priority for 2024. I think is where I'm at
I
with
can
that.
see that.
Yeah, I love it.
Second.
Yep.
Yeah, I love the idea and I think it's gonna make it much more attainable. However, I think we need to be a little more conservative.
Something that doesn't have to necessarily cost money.
Yeah.
But some people may have hired an architect to design them plans that maybe you can't do with plans you purchased offline. But clearing that with somebody like, hey, could I donate these to the town for use? Because they still have to be engineered for the specific site. Because I know I will likely do what I did for my own house, which is sketch my plans and hire someone to draft them. So like I am the owner of my house plans because I'm the designer of them. But creating a clearinghouse where if people do that, could I then provide those plans where they're available for the town? And that would be a $0 thing. That would be individuals saying, yeah, I have the rights to these and I will grant them to the town.
It's cool. It's a cool idea.
Yeah, it's a very community driven idea. I like that.
We could ask for similar donations.
That's what I'm saying. You just like, this is a thing you can do. We will warehouse those and be able to provide them. And that is staff time to make them available. But it's not us. It's us being a resource, not or maybe maybe the home trust wants to be the warehouser for those.
That's a good idea.
Versus stout, and then that would actually benefit the county as a whole. And maybe.
Okay, so sounds like we beat that.
Maybe we can talk to the home trust about that. Yeah.
Go ahead, Russ.
I was just saying, sounds like we've pretty well scorched that one. What about the street lighting plan?
I think that's a really important. Person.
And what do we have any ideas on what our cost on that's gonna run, or is that something we need to research first, or?
Probably need some research. I don't see it as a high dollar item. Do you, Preston?
There's an existing plan, that can be used as
The template, yeah.
basic.
Jen Coates created a plan, probably a couple years before she left.
Really just
It's pretty conventional. It's sort of like, actually, I take that back. I'm thinking of the stop sign plan. I don't remember seeing the lighting plan. I know we have.
I have a copy of it.
Okay.
I was working with SMK and like.
But yeah, I think it's pretty important. I mean, actually, probably the big dollar item is actually implementing it, and putting in new lights. I'd like to see more and more of our side street lights be of the profile that our downtown ones are, not 30 feet tall, but.
Yeah.
It's a sidebar, but a bit of a detail that could be a money savings thing for the town is that currently the way the lights are charged on the electric bill is chaos in this
Yes.
town. And if SMPA has a program whereby if the town purchases whatever lights they want and stocks inventory, they will service them for a standard fixed fee per month per light, rather than the way they're right now where he has 5 or 6 are on 1 meter. Some of them are pirated, some of them aren't even being billed.
So it's like
It's pretty,
John,
we walked the lights at one time.
yeah,
John, would the lights like we have in the downtown be a problem on the side streets with plowing? We don't have sidewalks, like the ones in the downtown are not on at street level, we don't.
yeah,
It's a detailed plan.
yeah, I think that's kind of the kind of thing that needs to come out of the
Yeah.
plan, but I don't think we're not talking about putting them out in the roadway.
So what's the vibe? Do we want to budget for that this year? I mean, I think.
I mean, just going by how Preston put it on the project list, hire a consultant to update a street lighting plan. So, I mean, my reading of that was staff doesn't have bandwidth to do it in-house. We need to hire somebody to.
Yeah.
So,
This isn't something unusual. For example, a former town councilman would be a great candidate for that. Yeah, I mean, I've worked with them through SMPA to look at lighting plans.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I mean.
I was like.
I felt you're stepping in.
Yeah, I got you.
Sorry, more specific.
Do we need to put a number on that?
Probably, but if you all don't think if you think it's gonna be somewhat nominal, but
I'd like to think it's, 10 grand or something.
Why don't we
If
do?
we're gonna do 10 grand, I think we better put it in the capital improvement plan.
I mean, it's hovering right there, but it's up to you all.
Trying to think the last plan we did in town, that was 10 grand. Like every time we do a plan, it's like, that'll be 20,000.
That'd be 20. Yeah, I don't know. I'm always
So modifying existing plans should be less expensive rather than coming up one for scrub. But you can also just go out to bid. I mean, you'd have to go to bid anyway.
No, not if it's 10K, but it's good practice, given that we don't even know what that is supposed to be or will be. So, is there a consensus to put this in to move forward with the street light?
I think the one we're gonna get a lot of public pushback, not to redirect, is phase 1 of our athletic park. I've already been asked multiple times, I was like, guys, we got the plan on Monday. But I think we're gonna get a lot of community push on that one. And I know that's a big number, but they were also including paving, and I would say we're about paving our park.
I don't wanna pave the parking lot, that's my position on
But
it.
I do think we either have to be very clear that we are not moving the parking lot next year. And be very confident and say, wow, we've got some budget concerns.
So I didn't get a chance to read that whole plan in detail. They had proposed in their various funding sources, grant sources and so forth. So was that like
I think we're gonna have a hard time getting Coco grant to move the parking lot. Like I think future phases.
part of the whole athletic plan.
Yeah.
That's what they fund.
So,
It's not phase 1 expense,
but there's a whole list of funding sources, grants and stuff, and then cost estimates too.
but we would need some matching dollars like, so maybe we'll budget for those matching dollars.
If there's consensus on not paving the new parking lot, I mean, that's
Can we do
huge.
more of that if we don't pay
Well,
it?
that's where I was going. I mean, that's something that we could, and Joanne would need to help me, our former public works director, who knows our crew almost better than I do. Joanne, what's the feasibility of our public works crew devoting a few days to scraping our existing parking lot? I'm just thinking out loud. I guess we would need a survey to get it leveled and establish a new parking lot. I know you haven't been privy to the athletic park master plan process, but the whole point point is to move the parking lot.
Ooh,
Or south or north, I'm sorry.
Further north.
Are we unilaterally choosing not to pave it? What was the results of the surveys and the plan itself called for it?
Can we wait for Joanne's?
Yeah, go ahead,
Let's wait
Joanne.
for Joanne's answer and then we can come back to that conversation. Go, Joanne, go.
okay, I mean, it would, moving farther north probably means doing a whole bunch of stabilization as we move. It's work the town crew can do if they have time. We'd need to probably buy material for stabilization and, you know, gravel and stuff. In terms of paving it, that's really outside our wheelhouse.
Yeah,
That would be a lot of material.
yeah, it's more than a few days, that's for sure.
Yeah, I just.
Oh, yeah.
I just,
You remember when we did North Lena or, yeah, South Lena?
Did we do that?
It'll be similar to that. It would be lots of excavation and getting rid of goo and replacing it and stuff.
Okay, well, I think, you know, to answer your question, Terry, I don't know about, survey and all, it doesn't make sense to pay that parking lot, in my view.
Why would we-
I'm just wondering if that was considered in the proposal for that fourth plan, which included the, I wasn't privy to that particular issue. I guess a bigger question is, do we have a plan to implement that master plan? Do we have to have a
No.
large budget workshop, or is it just, we're just gonna take it piece by piece?
We will
It's a plan.
adopt the master plan in December, but thinking ahead based on the conversations that happened. We adopt the master plan in December, we are going to get pushback from all of these user groups, particularly pickleball and baseball. Because they are going to, well, it's just true that they see, and I think the phasing was really ingenious, that really nothing is being stopped. Like you don't lose soccer fields while you're building a parking lot, that's great. But I think we would think about increased runoff on a paved parking lot, increased costs, like. This is not a big enough project that we need to pave it, and if at some point it needs to be paved, it needs to be paved, but where we are right now, it definitely should not be paved.
And what monies would that take away from what other projects?
Right,
Mainly
what's the opportunity cost, right, that comes to mind, we were just talking about it, it's visitor center construction documents, that's $75,000 right there, so you gotta prioritize, right?
The implementation of the athletic park master plan is on your 5-year. You just didn't allocate the
Well,
money.
we also didn't have any costs until Monday, so I'm bringing this up.
Right.
I'm just bringing this up because it's something I have already heard, and I just need, either we need to talk about moving the parking lot in 2024, or we need to be very clear with the public as to why we are not moving the parking lot in 2024, because we're going to get those questions.
Joanne has.
Go ahead, Joanne.
Yeah, I think you'd be better off leaving it gravel for a few years anyway, just to make sure it's stable. You don't want to put pavement on something that needs some time to cure.
Very, very
This
good
is
point.
this is not a great place for pavement.
Yeah, exactly. When you look at the history of this property and water seepage and stuff, yeah, it's would be a nightmare to try and pave it regardless. So, good point. But I think that's right. I think, doing phase one, at least moving the parking lot, is probably gonna be something we should be able to tell the public we're doing in 24.
I have a question.
Yep.
Because Chamber is coming to our next meeting, and the conversation with Beth seemed as if they didn't want to do that full plan of the visitor center.
They seemed to think, they didn't seem in a rush.
So what are you thinking?
Maybe we should reallocate that money to moving the parking lot in 2024. The
Scratch
$75,000.
the construction docks for 2024.
Just an idea.
It's an idea, it is an idea.
Just
It's not a bad idea.
until we have the conversation, until we, because I don't want to have any guesswork. I support our relationship with the chamber and I want to continue to improve. Especially after the lightly contentious year we had with everything. I'd like to get their opinion on it, and I want to recognize.
No, that's good. It's at least something we should have.
I think the construction cost of that visitor center and the planning for it, I think that falls beneath hardening the water supply. And unfortunately, I think it falls beneath at least kicking the can and getting the park, the athletic fields started.
I think we had such vociferous and awesome public participation. Like DHM was really clear that they don't see public participation like we had.
The youth group loved it, and I brought it, in our last meeting that I was at, I asked how important it was to everybody. And if it was still important to voice their concerns to Preston or to council. And, their group is just as kind of a planning sort of, organizing role. They were all for it, but at the same time, we've got a couple big ticket items that.
I just think it's really important that with as much public process as we have, that we kick it off. Because this one's, I mean, especially if we aren't paving it, much smaller dollar item than
The budget for phase one in that plan was 335, of which 211 was the paving, so that's still 100 and some to accomplish the other issues, which are
30,000 of it was mobilization.
Yeah.
So if we're doing it, that's
So-
revegetation.
Is this something that we could look to a GOCO grant to help?
Probably not moving a parking lot.
that's my thought is we need to do this that sets us up to be in a position to get GOCO grants. Where we're doing
If
the
it
next
were framed as
phases.
a phase 1 of 5 of an athletic park plan.
So-
I'd rather get money from GoCo for a lot of other stuff than a park.
Yeah, remember, we have the playground structure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of budget.
Joanne, real quick, if you can just indulge and throw out a ballpark number for the town, public works department spearheading and throwing a lot of in-kind to ourselves to move this parking lot out of pocket cost for material. That's a lot of material, maybe hiring some excavation help, surveying. I'm just thinking out loud, what number are we looking at?
How big is it?
33,000 square feet.
Oh,
2 spaces.
And how much of that is existing? Some of the parking lot.
That's true. That was for paving. I just pulled that number from the paving.
102 spaces.
It's not replacing the entire parking lot that exists now, it's just moving the majority of it north. So I'm guessing that, it's maybe
let's see if the almost 100.
pardon me?
By the time, depending on how much we have to hire out, the equivalent between our time and the materials, that could be $100,000 project. What did DHM think it was gonna cost?
Well, minus the paving, that's about right.
That's what they thought, yep. Okay, well,
I think if you all were inclined and wanted to go the route that Polly was talking about, evaluating the opportunity cost, taking 75 from one item and putting it towards another. I think that would suffice for now. Staff could just.
And I do think looking at these documents, it's 100% move. It is not overlapping.
oh, it is.
Yes.
It's like where you come in and there's those two pieces, it's this side of the tree. So I would be for what Polly is suggesting.
Yeah, I'm probably okay with that.
Yeah, I'd hate to spend the money on the planning documents for Heritage Park, only then to shelve them so that we could dump all the other monies in the future somewhere else. It wouldn't make sense. I would agree.
So I'm gonna change the CIP. I'm gonna remove the 75 for the Heritage Park construction dogs. I'm going to take the implementation of the athletic park master plan that's currently there. Would you like me to then put a hyphen and call it phase one, or just parking lot, just call it phase one, okay? And we're gonna put in 100,000. And I'm going to create a new capital project sheet, which is the type of document you see in the back of the budget, the one that I made with the wrong name when I said water line extension instead of replacement. So there'll be a new one of that made for the park, which will just live on the numbers. Yeah. Well, I'm just.
I know, I love it. I love it. It's great.
That line items that I create will move on from year to year. We won't like get rid of those numbers every year. We'll just, some years there'll be money, some years there won't.
Okay.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Thanks, Pam.
Maybe Terry, not to put you on the spot, but as kind of the pseudo representative of the pickleball club. Has there been any discussion whatsoever about what type of monies or support or any contributions on their end could be raised to assist in these projects?
I hate to interrupt, but very good point, but I don't think we need, it's not even worth going there.
Okay, cool.
Just because I think with the budget, it's our budget we're talking about. They're definitely gonna contribute some money,
Yeah,
but it's all blue sky right now.
Okay.
Not to interrupt, but I just think,
That's totally fair, thank you.
you know, what they're trying to not be here all night.
But that way we can tell
Well, that's
anybody
part- that's
from
a-
whichever constituency,
That's a
we are
phase
moving
two.
the parking lot.
So the baseball and the pickleball were phase two, so that's probably a couple years out. Or maybe phase two.
Pam, I have a total, sorry, I have a total tangent question. How many more years do you think the ramp bond? Before the ramp bond's paid off?
How many more years do we have? Without looking at my documents, I'm gonna say 10 years, throwing off the top of the head.
Okay, so it's not that close. I thought-
No, Kristen and I met with the bond attorney last year. We had the ability to pay it off, and when we talked about it with him, he was like, it's not worth it.
It's not good.
So we decided just keep on.
We
where
got
we're at.
a really good
Interest
on
rates
that.
that we're paying.
Okay.
The thing is, of course, that it's all town money. There's not any contribution from the taxpayers.
Right. Because of the way we structure it, yep. Oh, well, live and learn. Okay, so we're making progress here. What,
Oh, can I say one more?
yeah,
thing?
go ahead. Yeah,
I said this last time we were all together, but I want to make sure that we are all on the same page, that like if people come to us about when this is going to happen, when this is going to happen, when this is going to happen, that we are giving clear language about it
Clearly
is
saying-
not going to happen quickly.
Yeah.
On that, like,
On the athletic park. This athletic park is not going to happen next year. It is not going to be in 2 years. It is going to be an extensive process that we are doing in an intentional and well thought out way. It is not something that's happening today because we want to do it intentionally and the best it can be for the
And it's a
community
huge amount.
in the future.
can we just record you and then play
I was gonna say
that?
that.
I'm in.
So the answer is called Polly.
The answer is call Polly.
Or I'm happy to be very clear because I was the pessimist of the night on Monday when Daniel was asking everybody how long. John was like 10 years, I was like 25.
I think I said 23.
20.
I couched my 10 years and that it was really optimistic.
I still appreciate the optimism, John. I was just like, meh. No, I love. Okay.
You're gonna be under a bunch of pickle pressure for quite a while.
Great, that's, I love that.
Pickle pressure needs to take a pickle break. Time out.
A pickle break.
Can create.
Just saying, the majority of the people who are at these meetings representing that one group.
Yes, which
It might go out of vogue.
again,
Might be back to
like-
Zumba.
Yeah, they voted.
We'll be Zumba-ing on the pickleball courts.
All right,
Okay, anyway, what's
we're getting
next?
slap happy here. Let's refocus. What, do we need to go through the rest of this?
No, hold on, Russ brought it back up, I thought it was good thought, so if there's anything else you want to talk
I
about?
just have a question, because there was the discussion about 10,000 contractual services for the street lighting plan, and then Beth kind of said, wait, let's go here.
Sorry.
So, no, it's okay, I just wanted, do you want me to add $10,000 into the budget for that? Or?
I would say yes, that we need to have somebody look at it. I agree that it's an important thing. And, you know, not that we're gonna implement anything, but I think we do need to get started on looking into this.
I mean, it's important that not everybody on council knows that our current way of dealing with the issues is just turn off streetlights that are problematic.
I'm fine with that.
And I'm fine with that too,
Yeah.
but.
Everybody in town is the fire with that.
Not everybody,
Most everything.
but, and that's fine. Just want to make sure everybody knows that. I don't see anything else on there that's like,
So we are, I guess.
Yes.
yes,
Okay, all right, so we've just added, just really quick, I think we've added $60,000 to the budget.
Sorry.
and we cut
We were
10 out.
trying to-
So we removed
No,
10, I will take that back.
That's 10,000 per council.
Go in the wrong direction.
Sorry, guys. Whatever, I think so, I feel like we're 10 ahead.
I'd almost be, take that. 75 for the parking lot. I'm sorry.
So recall, if we added 60,000, we're probably gonna get about that back in grants on that microgrid.
Oh my God, Terry,
Oh, no, we're not putting,
the horse is dead.
Just, I could counter all your increases.
That's the kind of thing that just happens over the course of the year that gets us through the year. We're not
Exactly.
building that into the budget.
yeah.
But I appreciate your comment, and your lack of sleep. Okay, what else?
Y'all ready for funding requests now? Or do you?
I think so. I mean, is there anybody that has some, I mean, I think we all have a little bit of heartache over the fact that we just added 50
Yeah.
grand, but,
And we're just going to continue adding to them.
well, the good thing when we go through the initiatives, if that's what you're talking about, the funding requests, basically, Pam and Preston just plugged them all in. Except for a couple that apparently we didn't get.
What's that?
The nonprofit request.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're all,
So they're all plugged in.
everything that I received is in there, and then you've got them all in your packet too.
And my thought was that we might not give the full amount that some of the entities were asking for, so we can have that discussion if you want.
I think that's a good idea. And I also, in particular, I had one, it's real small change, but the Ridgway Western Heritage Society. So I went back and looked at what they requested last year, and it was the same amount, but they said it was gonna go to Westfest, and they didn't have a Westfest. And then this year, they say it's going to the True Grit Tours, and I thought that was something done by the chamber.
No, well, actually, I'm not sure. I think it's done by a number of volunteers that are,
I think it is done by their organization, Russ.
Okay,
I've never heard of the chamber being involved in that.
okay.
Some members of and I'm not sure I'm right, but I think it's the Western Heritage members who are the ones that meet in the gazebo with people who are interested and take them on those tours.
Okay. Fair enough. And again, it was small change, so not like it's gonna make a huge difference one way or the other, but.
right?
So a couple of my thoughts were, I'd like to just maintain Friends of CAIC Avalanche Center at what we did last year. Rather than bumping that up at $500, we hadn't funded them until I think 2020, when people started recreating so much in the backcountry, we started funding them. And to go from 2,500 in 2022 to 4,000 next year, I feel like is
I
a lot.
agree with that. I think keep it at what budgeted last year, 3,500? Is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
Yep.
So there's $20,000 of new requests that we didn't have last year.
Correct.
I would say Uray County Baseball coming in asking for tens, especially considering we are moving that parking lot, which kicks the ball rolling. I would drop them down, maybe thinking about what we have done for soccer in the past at 2. If we budgeted for both soccer and baseball at 3 each instead of 5 and 10.
Good way to deal with that.
Because we are, again, we're moving forward on athletic park things.
Yep.
You got that, Pam?
So, yeah, soccer and baseball at 3. I'm just trying to make some numbers of what we're reducing by. Yeah, got it.
The Sherbino, I know some of you are board members, and so I don't know how to feel about this, but I felt like we did a big number, like 15 last year, because we took the town took the beer tent at Concerts in the Park back. And so I felt like we'd made that number significantly bigger in light of that. But I don't know that that was intended to be the permanent funding number. I don't know, that was just my thought. I'm trying to remember discussions, if anybody else remembers how that
Yeah,
number came out last year.
they made about 24 or 30 because of the beer tent, and then because we distributed that to other members. Is that what you remember?
Yeah, we like, and so I don't know if, I think we made it bigger as like they had budgeted for it.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, the SHRB is really important to our community, but I don't know if 15 is the number I want to be at there.
I probably need to recuse myself
Yeah.
from the conversation.
Yeah.
But
I gotta have 2 as well.
I know, just,
Kevin's not a board member, but he's intimately involved, to put it that way.
yeah.
Yeah, I had a hard time with that $15,000 ask.
So if you're gonna continue talking about sugar, I would,
Should we leave the room?
yeah.
Okay. I wasn't gonna make faces or anything.
200 cases. Yeah.
And for the record, Kevin Grambley and John Clark have recused themselves from this portion of the conversation about the Sherbino Weehawken funding request.
So it is the most expensive ask of any of them.
And the part that I had the hardest time is that they had that was bundled into the beer money was bundled into their budget. And I mean, for the record, I left the Sherbino board because I was opposed to one nonprofit making the money for that many years in a row. And I don't know how much they netted after, how many years did they have it? 6, 7?
No,
No, not that many years.
no, like 4.
So I remember, I think I approved it when we voted for that last 15 last year. But given where we are with the increasing number of organizations asking and the increasing amounts from each organization as well, I think if we're gonna tighten belts, we gotta tighten belts universally. That's my opinion.
I agree with you. What are you thinking?
Yeah, was someone else throwing a number? I was the meanie who broached the subject.
Remember last year, if I'm correct, it was even more than that than what they asked. They asked, was it 18 or 20?
I think,
Last year, we came back down to 15.
could we do 12?
I was just gonna throw out 10.
I was thinking 10.
$10,000 is a good chunk of money.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
And we're also giving to the Minerva West, which
Well, hold on,
is so
wait.
similar bucket.
well, no, Minerva's, Weehawken is the same bucket that we're talking about, but to be fair, we were giving at 2,500 in 2022.
Okay.
Well, but they were also getting the beer sales at that
Right,
time.
but the idea that doesn't necessarily go on forever. And the reason we bumped it up so much last year was to kind of help make that off ramp from the beer tent money a little less catastrophic.
In that first year of the shock to their expected budget.
Right.
I'm gonna personally stick with my 10.
Terry, what do you think?
I think that's, and I was gonna recommend the same amount, but again, I was looking at Weehawken and Minerva as being similar types of expenses. And we're adding 5 for Minerva and upping Weehawken by 2.
Well, we haven't talked about Minerva yet. I was
Yeah,
just,
I was just gonna put them in the same general category in my head.
because they're
Performance, yeah.
I think we should separate all of them into their own and look at each individual situation instead of like, oh, well, this is like that, so they should get the same. I hear where you're coming from, but let's, the Sherbino has also, it's an established thing that does a lot more than just performing arts.
And to that end, though, they are really established, and so some of the other things that we put money towards don't have the grant and the funding and the donor banks that the Sherbino does.
That is true.
So I would propose maybe 10 for the Sherbin, 6, but anywhere in the 5 to 6,500 for Weehawken. Weehawken, I know, serves a lot of our kids, and that's an amazing thing. But
Yeah, Weehawken also does some other things. I was just looking at their letter. They bring in the Rendezvous, which brings in a fair amount of money. They bring in the Fête de la Musique, which I think we all particularly enjoy. So there's a few other things rather than just performing arts that Weehawken is handling as well.
right, but again, we're going from 4,000 in 2022 to an ask of 7 in 2024.
Yeah.
So
I'm just making sure that we realize that they do other things rather than just the kids' dance classes.
and I'm
Not suggesting we give them 7, so I'm
Yeah.
okay with somewhere around 6.
I'd be all right. I'd be 10, still 10 for Sherb and 6 for Weehawken.
Yep, I'm good with those.
I'm good with that.
Holly, how you feeling?
I'm also incredibly biased as I am a musician, and I don't even know if I should should I have recused myself for this
No.
conversation?
You don't have any official
Like
reason
a-
to recuse yourself.
No.
Yeah, there's no official reason, but I that's how I feel.
They are a nonprofit, but they also are a tavern, so they have revenue generation and they have the capacity to do that stuff. Are they a big part of this community? Absolutely. I don't have any bias. Bias against them, and I'm thankful for all they do. I just think the scale that they're at, they have the capacity to generate more revenue than these other organizations.
I concur, and I your point is well taken. I will be fine with 10.
Do you have a different number you want to throw
No,
out?
I did 12.
Yeah,
And I also know we need to tighten our belt. I am of 2 minds on it. I completely understand about, the point is well taken.
You have
So
a
I-
number, Andy, how much they got in 2022?
the Sherb was at 2,500.
Yeah.
In 2022.
I know.
And I think, I think we would look at all of these and think they're important, and we're looking at a significant increase from last year. This was the one that I didn't want to do. This was the hard part. Not the specific one, this whole thing is, this is the, it's for me coming out, talking, proposing, cutting everybody. I'm trying to make it easy on you.
I understand.
Are we in agreement on 10 and 6?
Yep.
Cool. All right, you wanna get them?
Just gonna pout for a second.
Anyone want pizza?
Actually, can I? I'll go get them, because then I can get. No, I've just come out here and I'm like, baseball and soccer, we're cutting yours. We're cutting yours.
I was gonna suggest we pave the parking lot and just no pickleball. No, there's no comment on that.
Didn't they make a song about like paving paradise or
Yeah.
something?
I said to John, I said, maybe we can call to an image.
They could, well, yeah, maybe they could just play pickleball in the paved parking lot.
Stickball. Somebody try. All right, I'll be like. Did you hear my stomach growl before?
No.
That's why I.
Figures.
Thank you.
Jane, did you get enough slices? Sure.
Okay, well, everybody's out of the room. Now we can make some really crazy changes, huh?
Right? I agree.
I'm still here ready to go. This week is
Go for it,
killing
Matt.
me.
I'm just thinking about the margaritas and such. That's what I'm thinking about.
Your refrigerator or this refrigerator?
Refrigerator. Don't leave, sorry, Russ.
That's not fair.
Pam, the children are like on another level, like with break coming, like they're not even like bouncing off the walls. They know it's break. Half of them don't even realize we don't have school next year, but they just are like non-functional. And I'm not much better. It's just, it's ridiculous.
It's certainly runs the discussion.
So who left?
Okay.
Adam left.
Adam left is the main one.
Yeah.
And,
Who's
David Dunn?
David Dunn.
David Dunn?
Yeah, understood. I don't know if there was anyone else or not.
Tanya's still on board?
I don't think Tanya was ever on the board. She's a staffer.
Yeah, she's not on the board. Yeah, I don't know, maybe she's now.
I was really just amazed to see that, John Elliott of Aspen Tree Service volunteered to be the interim president. I didn't even know you had any interest in that at all. Really great. Yeah, it was surprised to see him get involved in the chamber. All in favor. Anyway, where are we? Having a break while we eat?
Yeah.
So
We're
I
talking
guess
about.
the question is, did you guys recuse yourself on the Shervino or the Weehawken or both?
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm not on the Weehawken board. We're a sister organization. The Shervino Weehawken thing is really interesting. It's two totally separate, independent nonprofits, but that share a lot of infrastructure and share staff. But totally separate boards. I don't have a lot to do with Weehawken, but because we share assets, real estate.
I should probably go back to.
We should probably.
I guess the reason I.
We said 6.
They did both of those.
Okay.
That's why Russ was
That's what's
asking.
asking.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That was wise.
Okay,
So right now,
What was the result of
Right
that,
now-
so I can emotionally prepare?
10 Shervino, 6 Weehawken.
so right now you removed $15,500 from the initiatives.
I want to add 4,000.
25,000 over. What's that?
I want to add 4,000. I want to pencil in legal aid in the food pantry, what
Okay.
they were last year, even though they didn't ask.
I think that's wise.
yep, I'm good with that.
So you want me to add that?
Yes.
Add those back in.
I would also like to maintain the land trust at the 4,000 they got last year, which was an increase already over 2022.
So, yeah, so instead of 5, make them 4.
Yep.
Okay, and then are we okay with Voyager staying at 10, going to 10 from 9?
I am with their work on childcare, and I'm okay with that.
Let's see. We bumped the other contribution line by 1,500.
Well, it's the same as what we had budgeted last year, though.
That's true.
We didn't spend it all.
Didn't spend it all, okay.
Sorry.
It's the nerve over here.
You drink all that? Good lord. I don't drink during the school day. I can't, all my kids are pulling in the right direction. Can I just comment that I'm really impressed how close Second Chance asked to their last year number this year?
I was gonna say that too, yep. They have a new director.
I appreciate the precision of a $760 increase.
But again, they stick to the idea that their feral cat program is what we're paying for.
The feral cat program was listed at 0 this year.
No, I was looking at their letter, didn't their letter show that it was?
No, I thought it was weird. Anyway, yeah, the feral, it was 8,400 for animal control assistance and 300 for euthanasia, feral cat program 0.
Oh, right, so I did, yeah, I didn't mean to say feral cat, but animal control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which. I mean, do you want to
Anyway,
take
that's-
over animal control?
Shame.
But to note on that, we only had 3 dogs that we took to in 2023,
Really?
Oh.
Really?
All year?
all year.
I think in 2019, mine ended up there. I had to bail him out.
Brock's got
That's
put
why
in
it's so
jail.
low. It just springs Brock.
He was probably walking to the boy and got caught.
That doesn't take into account the people that like captured and, found a stray and took
Yeah.
it there.
Right.
That's just dogs that you,
We only go 3.
Well, good.
Hey, Preston, the question about the Region 10. Going back to that other line item before about economic development. So we still don't know where that economic development money is.
The $900.
I could go look it up on the computer and tell you what we spent.
Actually, Region 10, this is more of a due, right?
That's the dues.
yeah. It doesn't,
This is where the conversation came earlier. Somebody said something about it being in there, and that was the history when I said it didn't used to be in there, but the council, not this council, no one on this council was, that council wanted me to move it there, and I did. And I don't think it
It's
belongs there,
old,
never
it don't-
thought it belongs there, but
it doesn't even have a GO number, that's a 601.
And I said, leave it, and when we restructure our council initiative next year, we could move it then. That was my theory. Let's see.
And getting to the scholarship here, it looks like we had 1,500 budgeted last year, but we only gave 1,000. Do we want to
That's correct.
stay?
That's, my bad there, I did not remember that we had bumped it to 1,500. So when we gave out this scholarship last year, I gave out 1,000 because
We had increased it last year, just acknowledging that trying to buy books for a year, like it just better reflected. It's a more meaningful scholarship.
the fact that we didn't give out 1,500 last year is all on me. We will not make that mistake this year.
Okay, no worries. Just making sure we're staying at 15 there.
Yep.
Okay, good with that. UWP, I'm good with their increase. They do good stuff. And then we've already taken care of soccer and baseball, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Can somebody refresh me on the juvenile diversion?
that is a set contribution that the council agreed to a number of years ago. They entered into an agreement with juvenile diversion along with the county,
San
Urbana
Miguel
County, San Miguel County, and all the municipalities in San Miguel County to bring this program into fruition. And I, without looking at the agreement, don't know when this cap on this amount that we're giving them is.
And have we gotten any feedback from them or metrics or reports? Was that?
We
there
used
was
to
no
get
letter?
We used to wish yes for money, but then when it went into the program where it was like we had a set amount, we have not heard back.
We can ask for a report. They do great work.
Yeah, I was gonna say, from the school perspective, not sending kids to a juvenile detention center and keeping them in the community is huge.
Yeah.
I can't remember, what's her name?
Yeah, I've seen her face.
I can see, I'm like, I can picture her. she's great, does really awesome stuff.
You know, as a council appointed representative to pickleball, I'm surprised they didn't ask for anything. They actually raised, they raised, I think, $11,000 in that tournament. Which I think they're putting in as part of the eventual courts or something.
Anyhow, after that, how do we feel about giving Minerva their 5,000?
How many?
It's a big first ask.
It's a big first ask.
Ask.
Especially, I mean, what did we just say? We're giving baseball and soccer each three. I'd say Minerva's on the same plane.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's
Yep. I'm good with that.
okay, yep.
So we cut 2 from Minerva. Is everybody well? We haven't talked about the Erie County Supported Advocacy Project. I am not formally on the board of that organization, but I have been attending those meetings. It kind of goes hand in hand with the MEND group. You guys all saw the letter. I don't really feel like I need to recuse myself from that one, Preston, do you?
As Bo would say, the conflict rests with you.
Okay. And I'm
Confucius.
I'm pretty sure that the city of Gray have already committed their 5,000. So,
In other words, wouldn't we suck if we cut it?
We'd look pretty crummy. I think
That was
the
good.
point here about the law enforcement based victim advocate, how is it different from this is really, really key. And we want to wrap those services around a victim as much as we can.
I mean, that was gonna be my question. What was the benchmark of the county and the city of Uray? If they're all at 5.
Yeah.
we
And we've been,
we can confirm that, but I'm pretty sure that, I know that they were all asked 5 and I think they've committed, but I don't know for sure.
And honestly, the amount of sexual assaults that go unreported, A, and B, that don't go to trial, even if they are reported. I think supporting victims or survivors is the best thing we can do for a community member who is assaulted.
So Pam, where does that put us?
Pam, I'm so sorry.
You're at 12,500 and you're 25,000 over from the prior year. So you cut it half, or I don't know. You're
Sorry.
12,500 over from last year.
Okay, so we're
Because of the size of the ask.
at 102-ish.
The number and the size, yeah. Well, and because they also just added $4,000. See, my number 118,724 was out without 4,000, so they increased it. Then threw it off. Yeah.
What do we think? Do we need to more aggressively look for cuts? Are we willing to stomach the $12,000 increase over last year? What's the feel?
20, or not, it was 20 that wasn't included in last year's budget at all. That we since whittled down some, but
I'm comfortable with where we're at, and especially with the idea that we're gonna create a application process that will make people have to really show their worthiness going forward.
Yeah, this might be with the cuts we've had, that might be a good wake up call going forward, that everybody's gonna demonstrate their metric.
Yeah, I think so.
Can I do? Of course, I mean, I don't have to recuse myself. I don't feel anything, but KV&F, how long? I mean, was it just in 2000? Was there no money given to KV&F in 2022?
I feel like they didn't ask in 2022 and had before.
Well, no, KVNF is in relation to the concert series, and we didn't have a concert in one of the years, and that is what that is in reference to. Yeah, but it might not have been 2022, but anyways, it was because of that happened.
I have a funny recollection that we gave them 500 for years. Way back when.
I feel like.
Right, and then we increased it.
My recollection is, they've been on here since I was on council, and there was like a year where they didn't ask, so we didn't fund them, and then they kept come back and asked, if I remember.
Well,
correctly.
they never, they don't ask. This is part of the concert series partnership that we have worked out with them. So,
So it's also not really a council initiative, it's actually like kind of another thing. It's like juvenile diversion.
they
where we should
originally used to ask, and then it became like a given that they thought that it was worked in there, and it always comes up whenever we work with them with the concert series.
And they still come to concert series, but this past year, they didn't broadcast, correct? They had a
They
problem.
haven't broadcast for a number of years.
Yeah, but now they tried to this last year. They were here trying to do it. I know they had a problem with the
Correct,
Wi-Fi.
there was complications.
And so I wanted to unpack that a little bit and whether that was a presumed 1,000, they know they're getting
No,
per annum.
no.
Seems nickel and dimey at $1,000, but.
Kind of does.
Are you saying you want to give them?
No, I was thinking of
Cutting.
giving them less, although I do know they had a very rough pledge drive this last round. And
I just, $1,000, again, like, it's like, to me, if they provide some support for the concert series, it's almost a concert series expense versus really a council initiative.
Yeah, except for the community radio. I have no
think it's
problem
fine.
keeping that $1,000 in there. Their local news program is just really done a great job lately, and they've been covering with great stories. I agree. So, I think that alone is a reason to give them that.
Yeah.
well, with that, then I definitely have a conflict of interest and I say, let's give them 1,500. Because I started at 70K.
Nice strategy.
Yeah, sandbag you guys.
No, I think under the current structure we have, it's difficult to cut people who've asked before, but then not to take someone like Minerva and fund them. So I think, I don't know, I came in here with ready to cut as much as I could. Now you've reached the end of what I thought we could.
Yeah, I think we've done a good job.
All right. If that's kind of been a status quo, I'm happy with that one staying at 1,000. If it was 5,000, I definitely would cut it back.
Yes, I agree.
All right,
Okay.
so that leaves us at about 102 this year then, 103-ish, okay.
Is it
That's about a
102,
10K
724?
increase.
Well. Yeah, but you added 4,000, so yeah. But that's okay. Close.
So Pam, what are you saying that 118, 724 number has become?
Well, I was keeping track and then I got a little lost. I think that, that number got adjusted by $12,500. And that was adding in the 4.
So it went up to
removing others.
122 and then dropped down to 110.
I think
It's
that is that 118 minus 112, 5. I think,
minus 12. Okay,
so
so it's more like 106, right?
close to 105.
106 too, yeah, okay. Yep, I'm good with that.
Okay, what else?
We look at just a set number in the future and, hey, we're gonna give 115 grand. Just a max, we dole it out from 1 cent limit, or
Yeah, I'll offer, I don't be that guy, but yeah, establish community grant programs in other communities. And you're on the right track, establishing a cap to start with. So, and that comes with the whole program application criteria. Reporting requirements, many of these folks don't. Well, some do a great job, so.
And how would what percentage of our total budget then is this, the 106 or whatever? What number would be used for the total town budget? So that. we
Out
can-
of the general,
You mean out of all the expenditures out of the general fund? Well, total expenditures of the general fund is 4,032,834. So we'd have to figure out what the percentage, what that percentage is out of that. Jeff?
2.6.
Yeah, you can. You can say for.
Is that standard when you're doing accounting on these kind of programs? You say that we as a town dedicate 3% of our
That's
annual
a
budget towards.
really good question. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'll look at that.
That's a good way of putting it.
It's a really nice way
Yeah.
to like that.
And Jerry's is 1%, we're 3%.
Plus that
Oh,
means
another thing is
that everybody benefits.
I mean, budgets change.
All the time.
I've sat here with this budget, this is outrageous to what we used to have.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Sure.
Who knows how things are gonna look in a year or two from now financially, so.
But I like the percentage tie, because that means nonprofits benefit when times are good, and when times are hard, everybody's belts tighten, and that goes along with it.
And it's not a personal vendetta against anything, it's just, this is the percentage.
You say this was roughly 2.6?
2.6.
Why don't we adopt 2.5? Because this is an increase in the last couple of years.
Well, we don't have to adopt anything right now.
I was just curious. as
What's
to
gonna
where-
happen is we're gonna put that in the strategic plan and staff will go out and look at other municipalities and how they work with these types of things, and we'll come back to you with some ideas, and we'll have something in place before we start the budget process next year. And we'll let everybody know who has been making requests that that's our new process.
What else do you guys need from us?
The last item on the agenda was the review of the draft strategic plan. I recognize the hour. Recognize it's a lengthy document. I don't know that we can spend a long time on this, but it could be, I think the way we've done it in past years, you all may be ready to dive in, don't get me wrong, but it may be worth just spending some time looking through it to make sure everything's accounted for, it reads correctly, stuff like that. You're welcome to send me an email or give me a call. We'd be looking to adopt this plan in conjunction with the budget on December 13th, just to be clear.
Something get deleted from value 1, number 25, there's a blank line there.
There's a lot. Yep, there's a lot of.
And yeah, just,
Which one was it?
community value 1, there's a 25, it's just blank.
It's blank.
It's protecting our ghosts.
I just, that was really easy to achieve.
You just wanted the check mark on a day that you really need a check mark.
Adding his performance evaluation. That one, nailed it.
I'll take that one.
And volunteers.
I just, Preston, and you too, Shane, and everybody, I'm just so impressed with what town staff accomplishes in a year. And I know we sat here today and talked about making sure we weren't running over, but we have a huge slate planned for 2024, and I'm just continually impressed how this town moves forward and improves.
Amen.
It's pretty cool to be a part of.
Very cool.
I would echo that again on the heels of just having a conversation with the new members of council in Paonia and asking them questions, and the answer across the board was, I have no idea.
And I know I asked this before, but what can we do to support you guys for this upcoming year? Because we are aware that there's a lot of stuff coming up.
Being yourselves.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Man, come on. What am I supposed to say?
I'm like, I need better. They could probably print that. There might be a big enough market.
Preston, did you want your pepperoni slice cold, or should I be for you?
Well, on a serious note, I'm always coming back to I was just noticing that Public Notices Board, earlier tonight, that we're still advertising for a planner, we're advertising for potential replacement for,
Deb?
for Mike, but we need one for Deb. I didn't see that up there. Is that up there?
Mike,
Jenkins.
no, we're not advertising.
Well, maybe not for his position specifically, but there's a public works position
Yes, we
advertised.
need to remove that because we're not budgeting it in 2024, correct?
Okay,
Yeah, maybe we're going to take that down, but yeah, that's not what staff's recommending.
okay. But are we replacing Deb's position
Yes.
or basically Jess's position?
Uh,
Deb has become
Deb-
Jess.
no,
We need a new,
we have we had an administrative assistant who went into a new position as the deputy treasurer.
right,
So we're going to replace the administrative assistant position, which is an assistant to Preston and I.
right. And that is,
That's what you just said.
that's out there.
Yeah, we're in the process.
Oh, actually, no, it's not.
We're in the process of that,
Okay.
getting together and advertising.
Okay, because I think that, along the lines of what could we do to help, get you guys as much help on staff as possible. And I don't think you guys could ever have too much help. I'm always pointing out to Preston the requests that I see coming through my inbox for like Vista volunteers and stuff. And of course, that's a double-edged sword because a Vista volunteer needs training and needs to be kind of babysat. And it's, in some ways, it's probably more work than help. I think those are the kinds of things we need to always be thinking about, being creative and strategic and about making sure that you guys have enough help so that you're not totally stressed out.
Yeah, we're looking at that. And you're right about that, taking the time to invest in a new employee. We're gonna hope that that person gives us like a length of time.
Yeah,
Their
it's tricky, I
employment,
realize.
because it's a lot, especially if they come in without any municipal experience.
Right,
And the fifth deputy is another. big one.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
that's the other one. I was trying to remember what the other one I saw up there. So that's huge. Well, good.
I had one more thing that, you and I had the email exchange about it. You brought up Region 10 and the capacity that they've helped out in streamlining grants coming in. We had discussed previously a potential contract grant writer for the town. Did that come back up in the budget this year? Didn't we allocate or had we penciled in 25,000 last year or discussed it?
We did, but that isn't anything that you discussed this year.
A little bit, I think it was. The retreat, I think it was discussed. Yeah, I don't think that made its way back into the budget at a $25,000 level. Region 10's been awesome, Colleen. Now Jay is working with Colleen. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she's working with Colleen and helping to distribute all these grant opportunities and even offering to help. Grants administer. I don't know how much they're being taken up on that, but anyway.
So that given the fact that they've supported like that, just for a functional sustainability advisory board, if we wanted to pursue or get some advice on pursuing an EPA, IRA grant or something like that, should we go to you as a line item and figure out if that's appropriate to approach Region 10? Rather than budgeting for it now?
Yeah, I think that would be the appropriate path. And do you have ideas in mind on projects?
It's been, well, two things. One thing that's been bandied around is a sustainability conference, working in joint with Eco Action. And I've also even had conversations with county commissioners.
Oh, like putting one on, putting on a conference.
Yeah, putting on a conference. Another two monies, which I figured would be a line item for a consultant for communications related to some of the projects. And that might be, for instance, the Green Street project. If in terms of pursuing that, whether within that $25,000 that we had earmarked for the plan, the master plan of it, would it come out of that? So that would be a request from that bucket, I guess. And then the other thing that just came up in my conversation with the chamber, with Ashley and Catherine last week, was that they're going to be putting on an Earth Day event. And naturally, Sustainability Advisory Board, something would naturally fit in with, and at least as a resource, we've already traded a bunch of things like, oh, you guys should look into these kind of things that to highlight in their effort. So thinking, just potentially asking for some line item monies for helping to work on that collaboratively.
So, yeah, I think the next step is to. It's kind of a lot there, but I think the next step is to give it the SAP. I'm joining the next meeting in December. Steph will be out of town. And I think the group needs to goal set. We're really trying to aim to get that done a couple of months back during the thick of the budgeting process, but I think we all need to get some collective goals that'll help inform the budget and the work. That would be the best first step. But Green Street Park obviously is something that's already been worked in, but I think there needs to be consensus on some of the other stuff. That's not easy.
I'll also throw out that, I just found out there's a new guy, new retiree in town. Eric.
Kathy?
No. I could look it up. He's got extensive grant writing experience, he claims, so he's already talked to, Ariel about the film fest and potentially writing some grants for her. But, he said, you know, depending on the scale of the project, not sure he's got the bandwidth, but he's a local retiree that has the experience, so it's an option.
No, okay. Even not the guy that lived in Rich Jernan's old house.
No.
Very impressed, noted, and I'm glad you're gonna be joining us here in December.
Eric Stevens is the guy's name. I can share his contact with you. Anyway, we're all gonna go over the strategic plan in the next few days and send Preston any notes that we have about that. And otherwise, we're good for tonight, is that right? Okay.
Thanks everyone for
Yeah.
your time tonight. That was great.
Unless anyone objects, we're adjourned.
Well, good.
Thanks.
Thanks, Santa.
Bye.
Thanks, Shane.
Appreciate it.